Clay Patton on the Rural Radio Network with a check your Midwest sheep and goat market report for the week ending October the 22nd. Before we get in the report, I want to say thank you to the Midwest Sheep and Goat Market Report sponsor, that is Moline Seed and Fence. They're proud to sponsor the Midwest Sheep and Goat Market Report. Moline Seed and Fence, your local dealer for Riviera custom gates, goat, and sheep pens, along with Mountain View sheep and goat equipment. You can check out all their products at MolineSeedandFence.com. That's MolineSeedandFence.com as well. Check them out on Facebook. They have pictures and more of their products there at Moline Seed and Fence on Facebook as well. Now back to the market report for the week ending October the 22nd. The Midwest sheep and goat market was mostly steady with the week prior. Slaughter lambs and cull sheep, both wool and haired ewes, saw a slight $10 to $15 per hundredweight increase week to week. Meanwhile, slaughter goats were $10 to $20 a hundredweight lower at a couple sales, but across the broader spectrum, really looks like they just held their own. As a whole, though, there was little price movement from last week. Domestically, the market continues to face a lot of the concerns we've talked about. Drought, high feed prices, creating thin margins for sheep and goat producers. Meanwhile, impending economic recession continues to threaten consumer demand. Now, for the interesting thing this week in the international lamb market, Friday was a big day. This coming out from Reuters. The Saudi Agriculture and Livestock Investment Company, SALIC, which is owned by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, and the Brazilian meat packer Minerva, purchased the Australian lamb company for $258 million US. The purchase was made through the Minerva Foods Australia. That's a joint venture established between SALIC and Minerva Foods. Now, according to a securities filing in Australia, following the deal, Minerva will hold about 15% of the lamb and sheep market in Australia, where it already owns Shark Lake and the Greater Eastern Abattoir. Those are packing plants in Australia. The Australian Lamb Company does have about a slaughter capacity on an annual basis or yearly basis of just shy of 3.8 million head. Now, the majority of those, it does note as well that the company actually owns and processes, so it's really a captive supply type market for them. They've also got a couple more processing plants in the state of Victoria now. For this, though, the majority of their product is not utilized in Australia already. The Australian Lamb Company exports about 93% of its product and grosses 93% of its sales from export business. So at first glance, this probably has little impact here to the U.S. market. This kind of just changes who maybe some importers are doing business with in the U.S. But I think this may be having some longer-term impacts to the market. And when I say longer-term, I'm talking 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, as the sheep and goat herd looks poised to continue trying to expand to meet the domestic production we see here in the U.S., trying to undercut some of those costs. If that continues to grow, granted, after we get out through drought and a few things like that, but if that type of business continues to grow, then there's that back of your mind concern then where we're starting to see more consolidation of the global export market trade. Is that going to be harder for U.S. companies in the future to try and make their space in? Again, that's a long ways into the future, but again, a big move out on Friday in the international lamb market for sure. Here's a few highlighted quotes out on the week. We'll go to Columbus Sales Pavilion in Nebraska. 39 boar influence goats weighing 73 pounds, brought $175.50 a head. That's $240 a hundredweight. Columbus also sold one boar breeding buck for $410 a head. Centennial Livestock in Colorado, 34 head of 158-pound slaughter does, brought $231 a head on the average. That's $146 a hundredweight. The interesting thing, though, the upper end of that draft bringing $330 a head up to at $208 a hundredweight. So that kind of harkens back to prices we saw back towards the beginning of the year on those slaughter does. Centennial also sold 41 head of 113-pound wethers at $315 a head. That's $278 a hundredweight. The upper end of the draft brought $340 a head or $300 a hundredweight. Sioux Falls Regional Livestock sold 68 head of feeder wool lambs for $199 a hundredweight. That's an average of $134 a head. The upper end of the draft brought $215 a hundredweight or $146 a head. Producers Livestock in San Angelo, Texas sold 9 head of feeder hair lambs weighing 29 pounds for $302 a hundredweight or $88 a head. Producers Livestock sold 8 head of yearling open hair ewes weighing 84 pounds for $255 a hundredweight. That's $214 a head. Producers also sold 10 head of 55-pound slaughter goats for $342 a hundredweight. That's $188 a head. Other commodity markets this week, less volatile to be caught between supply bulls and demand bears. The Ukrainian-Russian war intensified through the week and continues to create concern that the Black Sea grain supplies will be cut off from the world. Turkey's prime minister tried to quell those fears Friday by reassuring the trade that trade talks between Russia and Ukraine would keep the safe haven passage in Ukraine open for the Black Sea. Not helping U.S. grain prices as well as a very strong U.S. dollar. It put new two-year highs against the Chinese yuan in this week. That didn't slow China, though, down, as last week they bought nearly 2 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans. That even topped analyst estimates. Brazil's corn prices at the port, though, are $65 a metric ton cheaper than the U.S. corn at ports, although a loss in export demand, not necessarily a bad thing here in the U.S., especially for livestock feeders. There's strong domestic demand, and it's going to be especially strong as we're facing lower production. Harvest is moving rapidly here across the U.S. Also plaguing U.S. markets, logistical issues, getting grains from where it's grown to where it's needed. The Mississippi River's near all-time lows. That's creating choke points, limiting the amount of grain that can be shipped down the river. Trucking and rail continues to be tight and expensive for shipping grains from the Corn Belt, which had a good crop this year, out into the cattle feeding regions of the High Plains. Now for the Haymarket, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, South Dakota, Wyoming, they're steady with more inactive demand this week. Fall harvest really has taken center stage with favorable weather across the region, so that's tying up trucks to transport hay. It's tying up farmers with hay in their stockpile. It's tying up end users that maybe have livestock and are also on the combine. So there just wasn't a whole lot of trade that was active. Now, there are some feedlots there, especially after any of those limited grass hay supplies, are trying to get some ballers started in a lot of areas. So that was a little bit of the market this week, but call it fully steady with the higher undertone if you want there. Hay season is essentially over in the Midwest, so farmers are taking final inventory. They're trying to decide, okay, where do I need to price this hay at? And likely, again, it continues to look like the price just looking to go higher throughout the year. Lamb slaughter this week estimated 33,000 head through Saturday, another week of unchanged from the prior week and down 8,000 head from last year. Year-to-date lamb slaughter 1.4 million, back almost 10%. Or 148,000 of last year's lamb slaughter. Live lamb weights this week, though, were good now at 127 pounds. That was a drop of 3 pounds from last week and up 2 pounds from a year ago. Dressed lamb weights were 64 pounds. That's a drop of 2 pounds from last week and an increase of 1 pound from last year. Goat slaughter under federal inspection this week, 10,582 head. Here's our regional price report on the wool. Lambs 40 to 70 pounds, 145 to 261 a hundredweight, 70 pounds and up, 125 to 220 a hundredweight. For the hair lambs, 20 to 40 pounds, 225 to 302 a hundredweight, 40 to 70 pound hair lambs, 170 to 308 a hundredweight, 70 pounds and up, 95 to 257 a hundredweight. For the wool ewes on the slaughter side, 44 to 105 a hundredweight. Hair ewes replacement quality, $150 to $214 a head. Slaughter hair ewes $50 to $140 a head. Hair rams $85 to $135 a hundredweight. For the kid goats, 20 to 40 pounders $200 to $370 a hundredweight. 40 to 70 pounds $200 to $342 a hundredweight. 70 pounds and up $200 to $304 a hundredweight. For the wethers, 70 pounds and up $188 to $305 a hundredweight. On the slaughter does, medium to fleshy $120 to $330 a hundredweight. Replacement quality does $160 to $300 a head. On the slaughter bucks, $135 to $248. For the breeding bucks, $200 to $410 a head. That is the latest here in the Midwest Sheep and Goat Market Report. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. Catch the Midwest Sheep and Goat Market Report weekly on Spotify.